Today, as part of our Business Spotlight program, I'm with Roger Courtney. He's the CEO of Sunstone, and they're based in Ringsend in Dublin. So over to you, Roger. What is it you do, and for how long have you been doing it?
Thanks for having us. Sunstone is a strategic economic intelligence company, which sounds quite complicated, but really it's very simple. We help companies in the B2B space see more clients and sell more through advanced match analysis and use of AI.
Fantastic. And AI, of course, is a hot topic at the moment. I mean, how did, without, I suppose, a lot of detail in it, but what kind of applications help in that uh, s- situation? Yeah.
We're, I suppose, quite unique in that we don't see AI as being a creative force. We see it as being a processing force. In Sunstone, we've been going since 2024. We got into Enterprise Island HPSC program last year, and we're kind of launching properly now. But we had already come up with our strategic direction before AI went wide with ChatGPT 4. And what we've found is that AI really drives our processing power. It drives our ability to manage and collate much larger amounts of data, but it hasn't directly informed our processes in terms of what the company does or how we do it. It just allows us to do more faster.
Fantastic. Okay, this is it. Yeah, because I know I've got clients who are on various stages of implementing it. Some people are embracing the technology, and I think the situation is, if you're not doing AI, so your competitors can be. So you can be,
Exactly. Adapt or die.
yeah, that's exactly it. Well, I think you touched a bit of it, but what do you attribute your growth to?
I suppose we're incredibly lucky in that we had a fantastic idea, which was to challenge the B2B sales and marketing environment. So B2B sales, to our opinion, is incredibly inefficient. We hear things like 3% open rates, 2% click-through rates, 0.5% conversion rates. Fundamentally, B2B sales and marketing is disordered. It's inefficient and it's problematic. Everyone's looking for the new sales tech, everyone's looking for the new idea. And we actually went to a sort of a slightly more old-fashioned view. We actually started to look at economics as a principle instead of looking at AI as a solution. So what we did was I took over a sort of a struggling data business in 2021 called Bill Moss Data, and I had to do a turnaround on that business initially. And it was my first time in the data industry, and I found that I absolutely hated it. I couldn't get the answers to the questions that I wanted to get answered. How many companies exist? How many companies exist in each sector? How can you understand what the market penetration or market coverage of any company in the B2B space is in a given sector? And so I really set out to look at addressing the fundamental problem in B2B sales and marketing, which is one of classification. So the problem is a very old-fashioned thing called NACE codes. They were invented in about 1970.
Sorry, called what?
NACE codes, NACE. So NACE codes are the defining kind of what is a company in the CRO in Ireland or in Companies House in the UK. What is a company listed as? So Bill Moss Data, which I took over, which is a data company, is still noted on the NACE code as the printing and publishing of newspapers, which it never was and never will be. And as a result, only 40% of the companies in Ireland or in the Irish economy are actually correctly attributed based
Wow.
on their NACE code. So we invented a system called MAPS, Market Activity Profiling System, which allows us to understand not only all the sectors that every company trades within, but also analyzes them at a product level. So we can actually differentiate within the different sectors and understand which companies are competing against each other, which companies are not, where there's space in the market for expansion strategically. And really what we seek to achieve is it all comes down to four words actually, see more, sell more. If we show our B2B clients more about their market, more about their targets, more about their leads, they will sell more through a deeper understanding with their client base. And as a result, then they can start taking strategic decisions about who they should sell to in order to gear their business better. The way we look at it, every company can divide their client set into four categories, A, B, C, D,
Mhm.
where A is the clients you wish you had more of, and D is the client you kind of wish you never met because they're no longer profitable. And so, given that companies' balance sheets are hungry for the revenue and the turnover, if companies could replace their C and D clients with A and B clients, they would have a greater degree of profitability for the same amount of resource. And we regard that as our key mission to reduce the inefficiency in business development, sales, and marketing. So, our growth is really about the fact that we have a new approach, a proprietary technology, and a completely new way of looking at the B2B economy.
Fantastic. Okay. Very exciting. So yeah, we use the ABCD. A we call point American phrase, awesome. B is we can turn them into A's if we work with it. C is can't deal with, and D is dead. Yes.
And I think one of the things that companies in the B2B space fear is the loss of C's and D's because they don't believe they can replace them with A's and B's. And that's exactly what our mission is. So by using advanced match analysis across more data points than any other company analyzes, we can actually show companies instead of here's 10,000 leads, here's 200 companies that if you sell to will build your business and grow your revenue without an increase in cost.
Fantastic. Funny, I just before we came on air, I was talking with a guy, prospect, who I know for a while, but exactly this is what he needs to do. Basically, even in the 20 minutes we were chatting, we could see that. But no, that's fantastic. So, if you were to, well, I don't know if this applies as much, but if you had to start from square one in business, what would you do differently, if anything, at this stage?
I would I would seek to understand the funding environment more fully before taking the leap.
Yeah.
Um, One of the things that I'm coming to learn now is that there are all kinds of really interesting supports, grants, enterprise offices. I got a notion in my head that we were going to be a company that could scale and seek to export. Our goal is to spread across Europe with our technology, which is functioning and working in the Irish market and will work across the rest of Europe. The problem that we've been addressing is that when we started, we went straight to the HPSU program, which is quite a high bar to get into. If we had started at a slightly lower rung of the ladder, it would have been an easier transition in. Instead of going sort of, from 0 to 100 miles an hour, having to prove we had not only export capability, but a technology that will work in other markets. We could have started a little bit lower down with the local enterprise offices or potentially the incubators or the startups, but we went sort of straight to the HPSU program, which, it's a substantial valuation. I mean, the HPSU won't invest anything less than 250,000 euro in any given company at a valuation that's typically, sort of seven figures and mid seven figures. So the issue was we went for a very high first hurdle, which we luckily cleared, but it was quite a challenge. And I would have liked to have eased myself into that process a little bit more gently because it was quite a high bar to have to jump over.
Okay. Okay. But you kind of got
Also,
there.
actually, just as a second thing,
Sorry.
pardon?
You say again, yeah?
I was just going to say that the other thing is I didn't build in enough room for error. So one of the things that I did was, again, we aimed for the HPSU straight out the bat, but everything takes twice as long and costs twice as much. And the problem is I was either arrogant or had enough self-belief to think that the things that I would do would be predominantly correct. And I think what everyone who is going to go into business should listen to is the fact that things will go wrong, things will take longer, things will cost more. And you have to build in the headroom for that. And that was something that we didn't do, which led to some hairy moments in 2024. But we got through them. And I think that crucible, that sort of trial by fire that we went through did make us stronger, but it did come at the additional risk of it could have knocked us out last year.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Great stuff there. I think you kind of touched on it a bit, but uh, what have been your biggest learnings as an employer since you've been in business?
I think it's impossible to get a good company off the ground without good people,
Mhm.
and that those people have to be understood. I think we've gone from a very mechanized view of labor to a much more humane analysis of what value people can produce as employees.
Mhm.
So, for example, the 40-hour work week was designed so we could mechanize factories.
Yeah.
But sitting there for 40 hours from 9 to 5 isn't necessarily the way that most people are at their most productive. And there
Mhm.
are huge amounts of talent that work in different ways. I think we're starting to learn that there's a lot of people out there with tremendous power and skill that are neurodivergent who don't just fit into that normal box of, let's say, I'll do 40 hours a week in this exact environment and everything will be fine. But if you meet people at their point or at their level and you understand the value that they could contribute, to be flexible and dynamic enough to allow them to work within your organization will provide extraordinary fuel for growth and development. And the ideas that people will come to the table with in a non-traditional sort of work stream environment, I think are hugely powerful. One of the things that I think is really important is that as we move forward into the age of AI, many managers and CEOs will be managing people doing things that the managers and CEOs themselves have never done. And
Hmm.
as a result, we have to decouple productivity from control. If a manager or a CEO simply looks at a task to be completed and a human as a resource to complete said task and doesn't see them as a sort of a two-piece jigsaw that they need to fit together,
Hmm.
then it will be inefficient and it won't produce the maximum output. The maximum output will be achieved when the person's work process is understood and they have a certain amount of freedom to execute in the way that they feel best capable of delivering. So the way I like to look at this is the difference between the Ukrainian and Russian armies in particular.
Okay.
So the example is one is very didactic and explicit and top-down management, and the other is collaborative and open to suggestion. So, for example, if there's a hill to be taken, the Russians will say, traverse that field, go up the west side of the hill, and it's a bloodbath. Whereas the Ukrainian approach is, hey, we need to take that hill. What would you do? And they trust the people on the ground at the coalface. And the people who are doing the things in our company with machine learning and AI, they're so far beyond my capability. I understand what they're doing, but I
Right.
can't do what they're doing. So I don't seek to instruct them. I seek to collaborate with them instead.
Fantastic. Fantastic. No, that's really great stuff. Funny, I was on a Zoom webinar that they had from all over the world, but a lot of that has been what you've just said there has been as they were talking about. I don't know if I took it all in, but yeah, fantastic stuff. And it certainly we're seeing it happening as well in the actual workplace. Um, the other one then, I suppose, you're probably more in the startup phase, but how do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business?
The sacrifice. Um, there's no way to get to a point of success without it. And it's trying to fit a quart in a pint bottle. So you just decide what you can forego for a while. There's a phrase that I saw recently. I don't know who it's attributed to, but it spoke to me. Entrepreneurship is like living a few years of your life, living like most people won't, so that you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. And what I've done to balance work and family is to only have work and family for a brief period of time. And in fact, the people who I know, I'm 42, and my cohort, my classmates, there are people who are now kicking on, my contemporaries, my friends, and there are some people who are just, hitting extraordinary levels. My best friend being one of them. And we're both going through this period where we're understanding that our engine capacity, our horsepower has increased for some reason that we can't necessarily identify. I think it might be maturity, but I can't be sure. And the idea is that um, if you want to put that horsepower and turn it into torque and use it to accelerate forward, there will be a period where you don't get to go on all the holidays, that you won't be able to go to the pub on a Friday night. You will have to look after your home front and your work front to the expense of everything else. But on the far side, the rewards are supposedly immense. Now, I have a young family. My children are 11, 8, and 4.
Okay.
And as far as I'm concerned, if it's not work or family, it drops so far down the agenda that I will get to it when I get to it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Good, good, good sort of approach there, a disciplined approach, I call it. Going back to employees, what qualities do you look for in employees, and how do you foster a positive and productive work environment? I think we kind of touched on it already, but maybe just to have a look at that again.
Curiosity is one of the key factors.
Mm.
We're working in a field and in an area that doesn't really exist yet. We're trying to create an industry almost. Um, Within what we're doing, we're sitting at the nexus of sort of data economics and AI, economics being the biggest of the three. And
Mhm.
we're trying to discover truths and facts that people have not been able to decipher or discern yet.
Wow.
And in order to get there, I have a framework in my head of what we're trying to achieve. But within that, my employees, and I do have a fabulous team, we've got 10 people. The commonalities would be collaboration, curiosity, self-motivation, and fun. And the idea is that we have an office here in Ringsend. We work from the office the vast majority of the time. We do have a number of staff who work from home and hybrid. But when we're in the office, our favorite thing to do is to work a problem on a whiteboard and talk. And there's a lot of laughter. We have a lot of fun. And I feel that if people feel valued and that their contributions are welcome and encouraged, even if they're wrong, and wrong is the wrong term entirely. I'll get to that in a second. then people will be wanting to contribute. And we are so much greater than the sum of our parts when we're all feeling happy together and building things. And I feel that to allow that environment within which people have that a complete lack of a fear of failure, that every question or every idea, whether or not it ends up being a successful idea in itself, will lead us forward towards the right answer. A bit like the Thomas Edison thing. I haven't failed 100 times. I've discovered 99 ways it doesn't work, and I'll find the next one, and it will. And I think the CTO of Amazon, the global CTO of Amazon, has said that they love failure because, in terms of allowing failure, if you allow failure and you welcome and encourage experimentation, you will always out innovate your competition.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the first time hearing that was, I think, Tony O'Reilly, God, when in his Heinz days, when bringing a new food product on, like most of them failed. But in order to keep people going, they had a cannon in the campus somewhere, and every time there was a failure, they set off the cannon. Everybody knew then there was a failure. And I think the more recent one I saw was a rocket exploded on takeoff. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but there was big cheering because they knew like now what didn't work, sort of thing, and they move forward, which
Absolutely.
that had people scratching their heads. But yeah, and again, we've got all the books, Failure, Way to Success, etc.
Well,
But
evolution isn't linear.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
exactly.
like
Yeah.
evolution will explore, and I think that speaks to what I was saying earlier about the idea that I expected my path to be quite linear. And what I
Hmm.
should have realized is going into a sort of an experimental area or an emergent field, linear development is impossible. You have to explore and you have to allow space for that exploration and for that positive failure.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, but I think the phrase I like, who said it to me, but I think it was a personal trainer. We either win or you lose. Or sorry, you either win or you learn. And that there's only two
Yes,
things happening.
absolutely. Well, I've done a lot of learning.
Yes, yeah, absolutely good man. Um, okay, and I suppose maybe just to round off, what are some common misconceptions about running a business, and how do you address them?
I think the most common one that I come across is that running a business is uh, easy and that, the privileges that come along with success aren't as hard earned as they are. Um, I've been through months where I'm the one person in the company who didn't get paid because I'm the one person in the company who can allow myself to not get paid. Obviously, like payroll is sacrosanct, but entrepreneurs have to be the first to sacrifice and the first in and the last out. And leading from the front and being the person willing to take the hits and protect the team and give them air cover is challenging. And through a period of time, there was a particular 6 month period which was extremely difficult. And while it was extremely difficult, I had to continue to provide to my team the leadership and um, the drive forward and encourage them in the same way I had been, while internally I was being eaten alive by the problems that I was trying to address. And in doing so, people sort of see business owners or if somebody has hit a particular point of success, they regard it as all privilege. They don't see the sacrifice, they don't see the pain, they don't see the months you don't get paid yourself, or the nights out you don't get to go on, or the holidays you can't afford. And for anyone to get to a point of success, the number who get there by accident is infinitesimal. Everyone else who gets there through an incredible amount of self-sacrifice and hard work. And I'm afraid that's not generally recognized in the populace. And I think that's one of the reasons why business owners find it's so I think useful to have a peer network of business owners because if you haven't been through it, like parenthood, it's impossible to understand from the outside.
Interesting, interesting. There's a whole bunch of stuff in there for our viewers, Roger. I really appreciate you taking the time out for this, and
That's my pleasure.
yeah, great. And then thanks again.